Thank you for joining me to hear about studying architecture at the University of Dundee. I'm Carol Robertson, an architect and head of Year 1 and admissions in architecture. It's a fascinating subject area and really offers so many possibilities for your future career. I love the inclusiveness of architecture in the way that it brings together people and place, environment, history theory, and all of those things that make our built environment so rich. So I'll talk through our course options and structure and show you some examples of student work to give you an idea of what studying architecture with us might be like. Dundee itself is an important creative city, as recognised by the siting of the V&A Museum of Design along the waterfront and the UNESCO City of Design Award. The award recognised the impact of the creative industries more broadly, so it included computer gaming, fashion, graphic design and other design disciplines, as well as the built environment. The waterfront and the development of Dundee is ongoing, and the Eden project recently announced an outpost which is planned for some post-industrial land in Dundee, so that's quite an exciting project that will happen in the next few years. And according to GQ magazine, Dundee is the coolest little city in Britain. The courses we offer share a 3-year ARB RIBA Part 1 BA Architecture, and the ARB is the Architects Registration Board and the RIBA the Royal Institute of British Architects. So there are professional bodies in architecture and they validate the courses that we run. At 4th year you can choose whether to follow the 2-year Part 2 M-Arch with honours, or we also have an M-Arch with Urban Planning with honours route. And the M-Arch with Urban Planning is also accredited by the Royal Town Planning Institute, so that one actually leads to a joint qualification in architecture and planning. Our students don't need to reapply between Part 1 and Part 2. So when you successfully complete Part 1 BA Architecture, you can progress directly into the M-Arch or the M-Arch with Urban Planning. To qualify as a registered architect in the UK with the ARB and RIBA, you'll need 5 years academic study plus a minimum of 2 years practice experience plus completion of the Part 3 professional practice examination. So most of our students follow option 1 shown on the slide. So usually our students would study for 3 years to gain Part 1, then go out into practice to use all of those skills, test them out in the real world, back with us for a 2-year Part 2, and then graduate. After that they would return to practice again and then choose when to sit the Part 3 professional examination. Some of our students choose option 2, so in that instance they study 3 years to gain Part 1 and then continue straight into Part 2 for 2 years, then graduate and then put all of their practice experience after graduation and then minimum of 2 years in practice before they sit the Part 3 professional examination. Our students can choose at the end of 3 years of study whether they continue directly into the M-Arch or M-Arch with Urban Planning, but they may also choose to graduate with a Part 1 BA Architecture at that point. So it might be that you want to change career or you want to change to a different school and go and do your Part 2 somewhere else for some extra experience. We have a professional studies advisor who helps support our students in practice, so we're in touch with you while you're in practice to help guide you towards those final exams. And students can also apply directly to join our Part 2 course. If you've completed an ARB RIBA Part 1 course or an equivalent undergraduate degree in architecture elsewhere, then we would assess a folio and you could come and join us at Part 2. We're really lucky in Dundee to have a purpose-built architecture school, so we have very extensive studio space, and this means that we can design the curriculum in response to that. So the design studio is really core to our teaching, and we have quite a diverse student group. So through the projects and working alongside each other, we can understand different cultures and concerns. Our year groups are around 60 to 70 students, and we split that up into smaller tutor groups of around 12 to 14 students so that you get to know your tutor really well. Students also have their own individual desk space, so you can leave work out if you're going to a lecture or you're maybe off to the library for an hour or so. Then you've maybe got lots of model making equipment out. You don't want to have to tidy that away all the time. So you've got your own desk space to make your own. Our staff are experienced practitioners and academics, and we do bring in specialists when we can. Often at project reviews, we'll have other practitioners coming in, but we'll also bring in specialists such as those that help us with developing fire strategies in projects and that kind type of thing. So we have good connections with industry. Our workshops and facilities we share with the Duncan of Jordanstone College of Art. So we have quite a range of facilities. The joinery and metal workshop and the photography lab are available to you, and the art and architecture library and art materials shop are located within the College of Art buildings on campus as well. The workshops are staffed by really experienced technicians, and they're really there to help you progress your projects. So if you have an idea about what you want to make, you maybe go and talk to one of the technicians, work out what materials you might need to source and what machinery you might need to use, and they'll help you progress things. Everyone completes an induction before using the facilities for the first time, so you get to know all the machines and facilities really well before you get started. We also have quite a range of digital facilities as well as the manual ones. So the digital lab covers 3D printing, laser cutting, vinyl cutting, there's electronics in there too. And again, you can talk to the technicians about what's possible with the equipment that we have and then develop your project from there. The CAD suite for architecture has PCs and large format printers and scanners, so you can do some really professional prints and scans of your work. We also have some 3D scanning equipment, which is really useful when we're setting sites for projects. Maybe on one of the initial site visits, there might be a group who take the 3D scanning equipment out. So you can actually start to build up a 3D model of the existing context around a site, and it means that you can really design in response to that when you get back to the studio. We also have some virtual reality equipment, so you can immerse yourself inside your building and see what it really feels like. So in addition to the manual drawing and model making that we do in the main studio, we also teach AutoCAD, Revit, 3D Studio Max, Rhino, Grasshopper, Twinmotion and the Adobe Creative Cloud applications. And the PCs in general offer access to Microsoft Office and SketchUp as well. So all of those programs are available to you to use, and don't worry if you don't have the skills to use them yet. We don't expect anyone to have used them before they come to us in year one. So we teach all of that right from the beginning of year one. Here's a typical week in year one, just to give you an idea of the kind of activities you might be doing each day. On a Monday, we tend to have studio tutorials, and often our tutors would run that as maybe a group meeting in the morning with their 12 to 14 students. So you'd maybe talk about the aims of the studio day, the themes of the project, and just talk about what kind of stage you're all at in the project. And then they would move into one-to-one tutorials throughout the day, so you can get some really directed feedback on the work that you're doing. On a Tuesday, that tends to be more of an independent study day. So maybe you're doing some work in the library, maybe you've got some reading to do for the lecture series, or you might be in studio again at your desk, maybe developing the project for the tutorials later in the week. On a Wednesday, that tends at the moment to be our lecture day. So we have humanities lectures, which cover history and theory, the technology lectures, which tend to look more at materials, structure, construction, environmental issues such as climate and sustainability, and some design lectures as well. Thursday is our second tutorial day in the week. So again, studio tutorials, these ones tend to be small group tutorials. So it might be that we meet your tutor group, or we might split you into sort of half tutor groups. So again, it's sort of picking up on the themes that are coming out of the project and giving you some more guidance to push the project on. On a Friday, that's our digital tuition day. So in first year, it's mainly AutoCAD, Photoshop, InDesign, and then we move into the 3D programs as you move into year 2. And as I mentioned, previous knowledge of the software isn't required. We'll teach you when you get here if you haven't touched them before. I have some examples of first year work from the last couple of years, and some of these early design projects tend to focus on form and scale and light, creating and testing atmosphere. We really encourage physical model making to understand space, and then we'll break down these 3D models into 2D drawings. So you can see in the middle of the slide there, at the bottom there's a plan and then 2 sections above. So we've created a 3D enclosure, and then we need to break it down into 2 dimensions to be able to communicate that to someone else. So it's one of the standard ways to communicate with a contractor on site. You're always breaking down the 3D spaces into 2 dimensions so that it can actually be built. We use the photography lab and digital cameras to photograph the work as well, so you get really good presentation quality images of your work. Technical skills are also developed through studio-based design projects, so these will test key principles learned in lectures. We integrate structure, construction and sustainability with the design process, so it helps you work quite intuitively with physical models. So you're working to scale and you can push and pull the models, test their stability, see what's working and what isn't. And the projects themselves develop from different starting points. The one towards the bottom right-hand corner there, that developed from paper folding. The one above it, we were testing cantilevers. So we're supporting that apple out in space and trying to be really efficient with use of material. So trying to use as little material as possible to do that. Each module has a studio element, so here you can see drawn studies of existing architects' work. The buildings are researched and information gathered to be able to practice the graphic communication skills both by hand and digitally. So on the right hand side you can see the plan section and elevation of a house, and that's done both by hand drawing and then also in CAD as well to practice those orthographic drawing skills. And then on the left hand side we've taken a CAD drawing into Photoshop and then rendered that so that you can actually start to see the atmosphere of the space. You can start to understand the materials used and the way that light comes into the space as well. And all of these graphic communication skills are then used in your own design project, so you can start to take the same approach with your own projects. In semester 2, the projects are more complex in that we try and bring all of these different elements together. So we'll choose different contexts and we'll ask you to respond to a place as well as to people's needs. The projects here are quite domestic in scale. The ones shown on the slide are collaborative workspaces with associated living accommodation, so for artists or creative industries. And you can see the range of drawing and modelling skills that we managed to achieve within year 1. So you're starting to bring together the digital skills, but also the manual skills as well. And we're trying to bring those on together. And you begin, probably by the end of year 1, you begin to find out where your strengths lie as well. We choose different project sites as well throughout the course, so we'll investigate different social and environmental constraints, and we're always looking to design with consideration of that context around us. Beyond year one, the project work increases in complexity in that we start bringing in thinking at a strategic scale or an urban scale, but you're also moving right through the design process to the detail design and working out how to create an energy efficient envelope of a building. You're working out the structure, thinking about the material resource. So you're going right from the beginning of the project right through to the detail design. The professional practice and legislation aspects are also tested through design development. So there are lecture series that continue through the course, and then we'll ask you to apply some of those aspects to your own design project. You have the option at year 4 of the M-Arch or the M-Arch with urban planning. So it might be at that point that you're starting to specialise slightly in the way that you're thinking about your career. And years 4 and 5 in general offer a bit more of a chance to specialise in specific areas of architecture. So the tutor experience and research interest starts to lead the different projects that are available in 4th and 5th year of the course. I have some examples of work from the different year groups here. So in year 2, the year follows a similar module structure to year 1, and it's really about building up those fundamental skills in design methods, technology and environment, history and theory, and professionalism as well. The digital tuition continues alongside the manual drawing and modelling in year 2, and you start to find your own strengths in architecture and your own sort of character in the way that you start to present your work. The projects require more focus. Aspects such as health and safety and the climate come into it a bit more, but we still require the solid design skills to make sure there are creative, appropriate responses to people in place. In year 3, you're working towards the BA Architecture Award to achieve RIBA Part 1 qualification. So this requires you to have an all-round understanding of the responsibilities of an architect in practice. So projects increase in scale and complexity again, and you might be addressing issues which arise from working in urban environments, and the choice of projects and tutors available helps you to develop your own interests as well. Aspects such as structure, services, sustainability are all integrated at the design stage, and we bring in specialists as well to help you push forward some of those other aspects. All years in the course include some team working. You really need to develop the skills for architectural practice to work as part of a team of consultants, as you never ever work alone as an architect. So aspects relating to management practice and law become a larger part of the curriculum from year 3 as we prepare you for going out to work in practice in your year out. Students have usually completed a year out in practice before undertaking our year 4, but it's also possible on successful completion of year 3 to continue directly into year 4. And as I mentioned earlier, students may also join us at year 4, having completed part 1 or an equivalent course in architecture elsewhere. The tutors run different projects across the year group, so using sites in the UK or abroad to help direct proposals which address different cultures, building types, places. And you tend to develop the project brief with your tutor at this stage, so carrying out quite a bit of initial analysis and research before finalising the project brief as a group. There's a real range of building types and sites in year 4, and we really enjoy the variety that this offers at this stage of the course. Projects related to humanities and urban design modules also run alongside the main project, so that broadens your knowledge a bit further than purely the design projects. At Year 5, the standard route to RIBA Part 2 qualification is the M-Arch with honours, and research themes are led by staff expertise and interest, and you tend to complete design projects as well as an associated dissertation, so you get to investigate quite a specific area of interest in some depth at Year 5. The options range from theory-based to practical proposals, and there's a focus on using architectural design to address an existing problem that's out there. Architects can't solve everything, but we try to tackle the issues where we can have some impact. The other option at this stage is the Year 5 M-Arch with Urban Planning with honours, which considers urban space on a more strategic scale to address broader issues than might be solved by a single building proposal. This year is 50% a design research module and 50% reports and written work, with an accompanying lecture series which includes property development, statutory planning and sustainable urban design as well. And this is the option that leads to a joint qualification across architecture and planning, so you gain RIBA Part 2 as well as recognition from the Royal Town Planning Institute. We use project reviews as a key method of assessment of studio projects. So you can see in the photos there, the students are standing up with their work. They have pinned a hard copy on the wall, or they're maybe using a digital screen, and they'll give a verbal presentation of their work to the student group, the tutors and guest reviewers as well. So bringing in guest reviewers really broadens the discussion and debate around the subject. So it's really good for the students to get used to presenting to some different faces as well. Our lectures support the studio projects, and we do have some online exams or written submissions to test the lecture learning as well. We have a variety of external opportunities for our students, rather pandemic dependent, but what we usually do is run international study trips in each year of the course, and there are UK day trips as alternatives as well, and these are tutor led, so we set up itineraries, we arrange tours around buildings, maybe meeting up with architects, so they can be quite intense, and they're really good opportunities for learning, just to get out into real buildings, real architecture, and experience those spaces and places. We also have international exchanges available, and we try and engage with competitions and projects and activities with other institutions, universities, maybe it's community groups or groups outside the university, trying to build in a bit of variety into your education. Our graduates work worldwide in a range of practices, from sole practitioners to large multidisciplinary teams, and we tend to have very positive feedback from employers who are often seeking out new employees at our annual degree show. So that's a really good stage to be presenting your work to prospective employers. We keep in touch with our alumni and ask them back to talk to current students about their career progression on graduating from Dundee, and it's always really good to hear where they've got to and how well they're doing out in practice. Our most recent speakers had been working in New Zealand, China and Hong Kong, so they'd been busy in practices worldwide. The ARB, RIBA and RTPI qualifications are really well known in the UK and worldwide, so employers would know that you are educated to a very high level when you have those qualifications. And we support you in preparing for employment through the studio tutors and also the professional studies advisor. So during the course, we would be looking at CVs, interview skills, preparing a portfolio, and just how to go about getting work for your placement and practice. We have a very active student society as well. The Association of Dundee Architecture Students runs educational and social events in addition to what we offer through the course. And the activities would include lectures, workshops, competitions, quizzes, sports, fundraising, balls, cultural events, barbecues, pretty much anything you can think of. And it's very good in terms of getting to know the other students around you, and it acts as a really good form of peer support. The students also run a buddy system, so this is really to support new students so that when you arrive, you're assigned a couple of upper year students as your main points of contact, so you can get to know them socially, and they're always there to help you with any questions that you might have about being an architecture student in Dundee. Our students also produce their own annual publication in hard copy and online, and the publication is entirely produced by the student team. So they have created it, they've set up an editorial team, and all students can submit their best work for consideration for the booklet. You can view online copies right back to when it started in 2010, and these can be viewed on Issue online if you search for Level 6 Portfolio. And that will give you a really good idea of the work produced by all years of the course over the past few years. Now I have a short video to play you of one of our third year students, Lucy Taylor. So she's just going to say a little bit about her experience of being an architecture student in Dundee.
I am Lucy Taylor. I've just finished third year of architecture. Pre-COVID, it was great because you normally get up, first things first, go to a lecture, and then after that was over, we would all go to Lyre for a coffee before spending the rest of the day in studio. And studio was such a great place. You looked forward to going because it was a social life in itself. It was brilliant. And then after your day in studio was done, maybe went to one of my extracurricular clubs or a night out in the Union. Tried to keep the same routine by beginning the day with a coffee, but via Teams with some of my course mates or with my flatmates in our house share. And then as COVID restrictions sort of started to lift, I formed a model making sort of bubble, and we set up my bedroom as a studio, and sort of a group of 3 of us made models and things like that together. So maybe slightly bending the rules, but it was a way to create a studio away from studio. Probably better. I've had such a fantastic university experience so far, especially at Dundee. The Duncan of Jordanstone College of Art is fantastic facilities, and the studios are, as I've said, are fantastic. I feel the uni have done their best throughout COVID as well, but university has really benefited me in more ways than I thought it would. So pre-COVID, I was in the dance society, which was great fun. I danced all through school and took it on at uni, where we toured the UK and went to competitions and competed in various locations like Manchester, Edinburgh, St Andrews. I'm also part of the Architecture Student Society, ADAS, and Level 6, which I would encourage everybody to join and to submit their work to, because it is so much more than just learning about the course. It's appreciating everyone else's work and trying to get involved in more of the social aspect of architecture. I would say the key message is just to get involved, join as many societies as possible within the course and out with, as that's how I've made most of my friends throughout university. I think during COVID, it's obviously been more difficult, but as restrictions have lifted, join all the sports clubs and course-related clubs you can, because that is where you reap the most rewards.
Thanks to Lucy there for giving us a really good insight into life as an architecture student. I'll now run through the entry requirements for Year 1. For hires, we require 2 A's and 2 B's, A levels 3 B's, International Baccalaureate at 30, and we do require English or a literary subject at higher or GCSE level. You can apply through UCAS by 26th of January 2022. We don't require a creative portfolio submission, but a qualification in an art or design subject is really useful in terms of preparing for the course. Don't worry if you don't have any past experience in art or design though. What I would recommend is that you get yourself a sketchbook, and it really is a case of going out wherever you live, whether it's urban or rural, and just start developing your own style of sketching and your own way of recording the world around you. And if you get into that kind of habit, then it sets you up really well for starting on the course. In addition to meeting our academic and English language requirements, we do take into consideration your personal statement. So in addition to telling us more general information about your interests and activities, make sure you do tell us what interests you about the subject of architecture. So are there buildings you visited that have had a really big impact on you? Or are there architects whose work you really enjoy? Or maybe you've been for some work experience, and that's always really good to hear about as well. As I mentioned earlier, you can apply to join us directly at Part 2 of the course. So if you have completed an ARB RIBA Part 1 or an equivalent minimum 3-year course in architecture elsewhere, then you would be eligible to apply for Part 2. For this application, we would need a full portfolio of the work completed at your previous architecture school. And there's a lot more information online and some detailed advice on what we might expect to see in a portfolio for an application to Part 2. So to summarise what's on offer in Dundee, we place Design Studio at the heart of teaching in our really extensive studio spaces. We have small tutor groups with one-to-one teaching. Every student has a desk space in Studio. We don't require a folio for application to Year 1. Entry directly to Part 2 is possible if you have completed a minimum 3-year degree in architecture elsewhere. In Part 2, you have the options of the M-Arch or the M-Arch with urban planning. We're one of the top 20 UK universities for architecture and currently number 1 in Scotland for graduates entering professional occupations. And in Dundee, you're based in the UK's only UNESCO City of Design and are part of Duncan of Georgeston College of Art and Design. So thank you for listening. I hope that's been useful in giving you an overview of the course options in Dundee, and you can get in touch with me through the email address shown here, djcadundergraduate@dundee.ac.uk. So thanks again and good luck with your future careers.